One of the characters that I am most interested in seeing where their path leads them is the character of Viren. He's such an interesting character. I would say of all the characters on the show, he's probably the most difficult to define. It's really unclear where his path will lead him. We have seen that he is capable of doing great good and great evil during the course of his life. He holds his daughter in such high regard and treats her with such care and love, while at the same time, he's willing to sacrifice his only son into becoming a fire zombie to be used as what is essentially fodder. All of the soldiers that he transformed into fire zombies were just part of a distraction. They weren't even intended to win the battle. They were just supposed to distract the forces of the elves long enough for him to sneak in and use his dark magic to absorb the Dragon Prince. He has a true love for humanity and for his family, while at the same time deep and powerful feelings of self-righteousness and fear and pride. Pride that will allow him to be exempt from the rules that everyone else has to follow. He acts as though he doesn't need to be following the same rules that everyone else has. He acts as though he is above them. Hero even points this out to him. Yet, despite his pursuit of power, he does not seek it for power's sake. He seeks to protect humanity. Humanity is at war, and he sees himself, due to his inflated ego, as the only one who is going to be able to make the hard choices and save humanity. He's willing to do whatever it takes. This is part of what makes him such an interesting character to me. In another story, Viren could easily be the hero, but he's not. After all, having a good motivation to do bad things doesn't make those bad things any less bad. Some of the worst things ever done in the history of our world have been done by people who had genuinely good intentions. And the same goes for Viren. He fascinates me because his motivation comes from ending war and protecting humanity. But at the end of the third season of The Dragon Prince, the war is ended, and it seems like there is now a lasting peace between the dragons, elves, and humans. So who then is Viren when he's no longer the guy trying to save humanity? Viren begins the story as the High Mage of Cthulhu. He's established as an authority figure. He's the first person that the guard who escaped the Moonshadow Elf assassins reports to. People know that he is respected and can be trusted. We see him as a friend of the king and a concerned father, but it doesn't take long before he begins to make questionable decisions. In an effort to save his best friend's life, he comes up with a plan of switching Hero's life for one of the guards. The king, of course, being a good guy, doesn't like this plan. Not at all. But would be willing to accept it if the person who presented the idea of this sacrifice were the one to be sacrificed. Or in other words, if it was Viren. If Viren was willing to lay down his life, then he would have considered the Soul-Fanged Serpent option. But when asked, he hesitates. This disgusts Hero, and at the moment, he decides that he will not be hearing any other options. At that time, he is prepared to face his fate. No more dark magic, no more tricks, no more shortcuts. However, given more time and reflection, Viren comes to the decision that he is willing to sacrifice his life to save the life of not his king, but his friend. But when he approaches Hero with the idea, Hero unloads much anger onto him. Anger that is perhaps justified. Deep down, he blames Viren for the death of his wife Sarai, and in the final moments of his life, Hero humbles Viren by making him kneel before him. After this moment, and the death of the king, Viren now sees himself as the only reasonable one in the kingdom. The only one in all of the human kingdoms who has the power, cunning, and will to do what needs to be done to save humanity. He will end the war and save all of humanity by any means necessary. After that moment with Hero in his room, Viren is prepared to break any rule. He's even willing to consort with dark, mysterious powers in order to achieve his own goals. He's willing to send assassins to attack the kings and queens of the kingdoms that he's claiming to protect. He imprisons 𝐁𝐵REN after 𝐁𝐵REN very mercifully spared Viren's own children from imprisonment. He's willing to use all the armies of the human kingdoms as a distraction, treating their lives as expendable so that he can achieve his own goals. He's willing to let thousands of men and women die in battle. He's able to do all of this and live with himself because deep down, Viren believes that he and he alone can make the hard choices that have to be made. The hard choices that will protect and save all of humanity. However, at the end of his journey, he fails. He doesn't get the Dragon Prince, and the elves and the dragons win the day. He dies only to be later resurrected by his daughter at great cost to her own body. Last we see him at the end of Season 3, he is confused and without a friend in the world. Well, I guess maybe he has his little bug pal. So this begs the question, where does he go from here? What's next for Viren now that the war is over? Now that he no longer needs to be the one to make the hard choices to protect humanity, who will Viren become? I can really only see two paths that he could take. He could either continue down his path of darkness into full-blown villainy, or perhaps he could become something different. He could become somebody different. Somebody better. The man that his friend Hera once believed him to be. Now that he no longer needs to protect humanity, perhaps his new course of action will be vengeance. Vengeance against the elves and dragons for what they had done to him. Perhaps he will even become more resolute and sure of his justifications. Perhaps now, with his daughter at his side and Erebos goading him on, he will attempt to conquer 𝐀𝐧𝐝 once again. Perhaps he will be angered by everyone, the humans who stood against him and what he now believes have betrayed him, the dragons for killing 𝐁𝐳 and countless others, and angry at the elves for taking the life of his best friend, and from his perspective, starting all of this. Viren at this point is a man who has lost everything. His position at the castle, his armies, and even his own son. Now it's time for him to take revenge on not just the magical creatures of 𝐀𝐧𝐝, but all of 𝐀𝐧𝐝. Personally, I really hope this isn't what's going to happen, but I can definitely see how his own hubris combined with rage could lead him to twist the facts that led him to his current predicament into being a victim narrative that he will use to double down on his own sense of self-importance. Now, he's not only the one that has to save humanity, now he's the only one who can save the entire world. And to do that, he will have to destroy all the powers that be and establish himself as the only power in the world. Because after all, he is the only one who can do what needs to be done. He is the only one that knows what's right, and he is the only one that has the will to make the hard choices and protect the world. I really don't want this to happen. I'm hoping for a very different path for Viren. I can imagine a scene where Viren lays in the cave after being resurrected. He wonders about what's going to happen next. He can't stop thinking about what had happened. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, but at the last moment he failed. Not only did he fail, but it led to his own death. Soon he learns that the war is over. Peace has been achieved. Humanity no longer needs him to be their savior. He reflects on all that this conflict has cost him. His son, his position, his home, the damage that has been done to his beloved daughter's body, presumably irreparable damage, due to the dark magic needed to resurrect him. He's confused and disgusted and afraid. He begins to think in the back of his mind that perhaps, just perhaps, he has been wrong. Perhaps he did horrible things for nothing. He's not ready for it yet, But soon he's going to come to the understanding that he needs to make amends for what he has done. He needs to choose a new path. He needs to return to humanity and own up to what he has done. He returns to 𝐀𝐧𝐝 and frees all of the elves that he has captured in his coin collection. He reunites Rayla, Runan, and her parents. He makes amends with Soren. He apologizes to Soren and tells him how sorry he is for the way that he's treated him. Viren explains that he's always been so jealous of how easy it was for his son to be happy, something that's always been very difficult for him to do. They embrace and make up. The final battle is coming soon, and they're going to have to all work together in order to stop Erebos' master plan, wiping out all the magical creatures in the world. It is in this conflict that Viren dies. He is mourned and hailed as a hero of humanity. By sacrificing his life, he becomes the man that Hero believed him to be. He's recorded in the history of humanity not as a villain, but as a hero.